oh my God, this Bitcoin ETF came out and no money came into Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin decided to crash. What the hell do we do? I thought everyone was saying that there was going to be a God candle and now there's no candle. What do? There was God candle and now we got no candle. In fact, worse than a no candle. We got a negative candle. We got a red candle. What the hell happened? I thought, British HODL, you said that all this capital was going to come into the ETF, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about exactly what's happened here, right? So the Bitcoin ETF is live. Not only is it live, it is trading. Not only is it trading, we're still fighting enemies. You got people like Vanguard and Merrill Lynch being the Grinches of the Bitcoin ETF and not even allowing their customers. Can you imagine that? You call them up and say, hey, you got my money. I want to buy some Bitcoin ETFs with it. Licensed, regulated by the SEC. I want to buy some of this product. And they say, get fucked. No, actually what they say is, sorry, these products don't align with the philosophies that we have at Vanguard. If anyone is watching this and you got a Vanguard account, like a Vanguard is managing your retirement account, it takes you 5 minutes to move it to Fidelity. And I suggest everyone do that. Now, what's happening to the price? The price has absolutely collapsed back down to where it was on the 8th of January, right? So, and it is currently the 12th of January. So 4 days ago, the price is back down to where it was 4 days ago. It's currently sitting at $43,500. What the fuck happened? Where's this money? Right? That's what everyone's wondering. So I'm going to answer why I believe this is going on now. And I was waiting for the GBTC net flows data to be released before I did this video and came to a conclusion. My prediction around the ETFs, by the way, was $3.5 billion of net inflows in the first week of trading. And secondly, if that happened, we would see a price of $57,000 to $62,000. I'm still with that. I'm not changing that until, and I'll reevaluate that after close of business this coming Thursday, right? Because that will be a week of trading. It'll actually be 1 day short because Monday's a market holiday. So, but that's when I'll reevaluate that prediction. What's going on in the market? Well, why is the price down, British HODL? What's going on? If all this capital, BlackRock had $2 billion. Where did BlackRock's $2 billion go? You were wrong. So let's evaluate what's happened as far as these inflows go. Based on the data that James and Eric have been putting out from Bloomberg Intelligence, what we know is roughly about $700 million went, well, firstly, it was the most successful asset class launch of an ETF in history. It's like $3.6 billion of volume. But volume is different to net inflows. Volume is the dollar value of every trade, whether it's a buy or a sell. Volume is extremely important because it will dictate the amount of liquidity and it will dictate the ability for people to move in and out of the asset. Certain businesses, certain funds, certain hedge funds won't even get into an asset until there's a certain amount of volume involved. So I was, again, why was I waiting for the net flows data to come out? Because I wanted to see what the bleed was from GBTC. Like I said, the business plan here for a lot of these funds is going to be, hey, we have like BlackRock, 0.12% fee per year. So therefore, if you hold GBTC, you're going to be paying 1.5%. Dump your GBTC, get into the BlackRock fund, and you'll be paying 0.12% up to $5 billion and then 0.2% after that. So clearly the business plan was, let's make GBTC bleed. And again, like I said, this was the best way for Gary Gensler to try and punish Grayscale for the lawsuit that they went through. Because on day one, if I've got a fund that's going to offer me 0.12% versus a fund that's going to keep charging me 1.5%, clearly what I'm trying to orchestrate is get this fund, the one that's charging a lot, to dump its assets and put it into this one here. Makes perfect sense. So even if I am BlackRock and I've got all this capital sitting on the sidelines waiting to come in, I'm not going to do it until the bleeding stops here, because then the price will be lower. If I have no buying orders in the market and all that happens is people hit sell, 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 sell on this high price fund, then it's going to create a price movement in the market to the downside. That's what I believe is going on here. So the buying pressure is not keeping up with the selling pressure, because the buying pressure, in my opinion, has not even entered the market. We've got 700 million coming in over 11 funds, right? The buying pressure has not even entered the market yet, because I believe what they're trying to do is bleed out GBTC as much as they can. And to a certain extent, they got the goal that they wanted, which is the most successful asset launch of an ETF ever, right? So that part's done. Now the next mission here is, okay, so GBTC has got to bleed, right? Like, we got to bleed GBTC. But guess what happened? In reality, now that we can see the net, by the way, to put this into perspective, BlackRock said, or rumors were that they had $2 billion lined up to go into the fund. After the first day, there's only $111 million in there, right? So clearly, either that was a lie, which I don't think it was, or it's not been executed, right? Because, by the way, if I'm an advisor for BlackRock, I got my ETF guy on the phone, I'm going to call him and say, hey, because remember, as soon as I send the money to the ETF, they have to execute within 1 or 2 days based on the prospectus. They have to execute on the Bitcoin. So if I'm an advisor and I've got $2 billion lined up, I'm going to call my ETF guy and say, hey, what's the order books looking like? And he's going to say, it's looking kind of crazy. It looks like GBTC is selling it with all the redemptions going on. Okay, cool. Let me know once the bleeding stops. Hang up. Now I just wait. I wait until GBTC drives down the price. The selling pressure from GBTC drives down the price. And then he calls me and says, hey, looks like the order books are thinning out. Do you want to start placing your orders? That's the bottom of the market. And then I say, cool, execute on, $1 billion worth of purchases over a period of time. So you've got that side of it, right? That's a game that Wall Street's going to play. And remember, it's two parts in the same business. I'm the advisor of the capital, and now we've got my ETF execution team that needs to actually execute on the purchasing of the underlying assets. So there's that. Secondly, there's going to be those people who the second, like I told you, I'm not the only one that knows this, right? There's a lot of smart people that know exactly what happened when BlackRock decided to file for the ETF. BlackRock filed, they started buying the Bitcoin. They're traders, and all they did was buy the Bitcoin, wait until approval, and then dump into the market. So you got that dumping app. If you did that trade, by the way, that's a 75% profit, 77% profit. So there's that selling pressure that's going on. On top of that, you've got the volatility that's created with a cash creates ETF. The difference between an in-kind and a cash creates is that, and I believe this is why GBTC was holding on hardest for the in-kind, because in an in-kind process, if I want to move a big amount of Bitcoin from GBTC to BlackRock, I make a phone call. I say, hey, I want to move my assets from GBTC and I want to send them to BlackRock custody. It's like, the assets obviously get moved with Bitcoin. It's not that hard, but the assets get moved, and then there is a book entry on this asset was moved from this account to this account. It's in the same name, and I reissue the shares, and I'm done. I don't need to insert the asset into the market. Whereas with a cash creates and a cash redeems, I have to sell GBTC, which forces GBTC to dump the Bitcoin into the market, and then I have to go and click buy on the Bitcoin, on the BlackRock fund, which then forces BlackRock to go back into the market and buy the Bitcoin. Now, imagine if you hit sell on your GBTC, and now you start seeing the market go down because the order books were so thin. What are you going to do? You're going to immediately click buy on the BlackRock fund, or you're going to sit there and go, hey, maybe let's wait a couple hours and see where this thing goes? I would do that. If I sold a bunch of GBTC and I see the price start to drop, I'm going to say, hey, let's wait a few hours and see where this thing goes. Maybe we could get some more Bitcoin. So you got that pressure going on because they have to actually sell it into the market and then buy it from the market. You can't just send the assets over. But let's look at what's happened here to GBTC. So the plan was, in my mind, to make GBTC bleed, right? 1.5% fee. It turns out that GBTC's team seems to have done an excellent job here, because there was only $95 million out of a $27 billion AUM, $95 million that came out of the GBTC fund. So they've played this game right. They've got the highest fee fund, and it hasn't had much bleeding at all, right? $100 million on a $27 billion AUM is nothing. So congrats to the GBTC team, because it seems like everyone has said, okay, I'm just going to stay here for a while. Right? Now, will this rotation still happen over time? Sure. But remember, like, you've got people in retirement accounts with Vanguard that can't even purchase Bitcoin, the ETFs yet. You've got all of this capital sitting on the sidelines that's waiting for the right price to get in. And so that's caused this price dip over here. But that doesn't mean the buying orders are not there. It means that the buying orders have not entered the market. There's a lot of people that are thinking that just because the ETF, the price of the asset went down as the ETF got launched, that the asset's completely irrelevant. That's not what it is. You have to, if you're a smart market maker, you're going to allow this to happen. Now, here's where I was right but wrong. Okay? Wrong but correct. Okay? If you look at my tweets and if you look at my videos and look at what I said, look at my video from a few weeks ago, which basically Bitcoin price post ETF. What I said would happen is, and my original thinking was that the ETFs would get approved and then there'd be a month delay until they started trading. But what actually happened? They got approved and the very next day they started trading first thing in the morning. So that wasn't on my bingo cards at all. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know I was surprised by that. I said, fuck, this is kind of crazy. So here's what's happened, right? I was wrong because I thought that we would have the sell the news event happen before the launch of an ETF, but I was kind of correct because the sell the news event happened anyway. So now what we're going to see, and what I actually said in that video was that we would dump on approval, right, and then slowly build up to the trading day. And what's happened here is it's turned into a sell the launch event because the trading day and the approval day were very, very close together, right? It was literally, there was no time. Like it was market closed, approved, before by the time the market opens, it's trading. So I was kind of wrong, but correct in that. So a lot of people are saying, oh my God, this capital's not there. The capital hasn't even stepped into the game, right? You got BlackRock fund with $100 million of assets. Like, what are we talking about here? This is nothing, right, in the grand scheme of things. So what I think is happening here is very, very simple. The sell-side order book got filled up with GBTC redemptions because there was no heavy buying on the other side because they're smart buyers, right? Because there was no buying on the other side. The price has been driven down. We've got to wait for, and all of the people who sold their GBTC because they didn't understand what it was, they were waiting for the lockup period or waiting for their discount to come down to less than 5% in order to sell, and they started dumping and everything. There's just been a lot of selling pressure that's going on here, and the buying pressure is not kept up with the selling pressure. So, but here's the thing though, I think the buying pressure will keep up. I think the buying pressure is there. I don't think that BlackRock does not have $2 billion ready to go into this fund. I don't think Fidelity does not have, $1 to $2 billion ready to go into this. If that was the case, if they really didn't think that that was going to happen, they wouldn't put a fee waiver up to $5 billion into the fund. So what I think is going to happen is you're going to wait for these order books to get cleaned out, all of the selling to be taken up, and see at what price it sort of sits at. And I think it's going to be here. I don't know whether we'll see any flash crashes or anything like that. I think it's going to be here. I have a friend who thinks it's going to go down to 39, but he's always right about things that don't matter and wrong about things that matter. So I don't think that's going to happen. We'll see. But if I was them, I'd be sitting around waiting as long as we get to market against GBTC, market the fact that we had the most successful fund, and we still got a few days to start executing our buying position slowly to get the right amount of Bitcoin in, right? Because if you're an investor and your BlackRock advisor calls you up and say, you want me to get you into an allocation? And say, yeah, just slide me into an allocation over the next month or whatever, right? Like, so we're really going to start. So again, I hope you understand why I believe that I was wrong but correct. Right? Because the sell the news event basically turned into a sell the launch event. And then yesterday what I thought was happening was that a bunch of sell orders came out of GBTC and the market was pretty neutral. But that doesn't look like the case now that GBTC's redemption numbers have come out, and it's absolutely fantastic $100 million only. Right? That's a fucking unbelievable achievement by the Grayscale team. I'm extremely proud of them for being able to pull that off. So, bunch of sell orders in the market. Prices come down because the buying pressure hasn't stepped in yet, because the buying pressure is waiting for the selling pressure to hit a bottom, and then they'll start buying and accumulating at the bottom of the market. So that's what I think is going on with the price. I don't think an ETF is. I don't think this constitutes as a failed launch here. It's the most successful asset launch of an ETF in the history of ETFs. There's a bunch of capital here. Hundreds of millions of people have been opened up to the ability to invest in Bitcoin now. And this is a fantastic thing for the next month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So, anyone who's sitting there disappointed, sure, I was disappointed too, because in the back of my mind, even no matter how rational of an investor I want to believe I am, just like everyone else, I was sitting here expecting a God candle up to the heavens, a God green candle up to the heavens on day one. But of course, right, all of the manipulation and everything else that everyone thought was going to happen in the market basically happened. Everyone thought it was going to happen before the ETF was launched, and it's basically happened after the ETF was launched to drive the price down so they can start acquiring the Bitcoin at a lower price and then let the price rise. So yeah, but one of the fascinating things is how much Bitcoin has been sucked out of OTC desks in just one day. I think it was like 7,000 if I'm correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But tons of Bitcoin. OTC desk is like a warehouse, right? And before you actually go to the real market, you can just go to the warehouse and say what you got and just take what you need. Now, if it continues like what's been happening, the buying that's been happening, OTC desks will be dry by next week, at which point they'll actually have to go to the market in order to buy that Bitcoin. So there's a lot of good happening here, but of course, those of us that were absolutely bullish on the launch of the ETF were wrong, and I think it's in part due to the amount of selling pressure from GBTC that came out, which wasn't much, by the way, but the buying pressure just didn't step on. So therefore, we've seen a price dip here. It's very, very simple mathematics. And again, I think I was wrong but correct. Let me know what you guys think about that. And yeah, ultimately, no matter what happens with this ETF, no matter how successful it is, no matter how unsuccessful it is, there are still only ever 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.